Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody is having a good day so far. Hope everything is going your way and the shop gods are being nice to you. Sorry for that little hesitation there. Just kind of getting my bearings here. With the time change, things have caught me unaware. So, let's go ahead and go over here, push the magic button, and say, "Hey, y'all, how you doing? Happy Sunday to you." Oh boy, it's been an adventure. The time change kind of caught me unaware here, and I woke up this morning to the clock saying 10:05 a.m. and I was like, "What? Heck no!" And I forgot, of course, the time change happened today. Um, so, yeah, it was not a good thing. It was a massive case of panic. So, as you can see, I haven't been up for very long. Normally, I'm up very, very early in the morning. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's inside baseball. Um, but I gotta say, one thing I was unsure about, and if you follow me on Facebook, you know I posted, a I posted earlier that yesterday on Facebook that I didn't know if YouTube was going to make the adjustment because I schedule these live streams out usually Thursday or Friday. I schedule the live streams. So we hadn't made the time change yet here in the US for daylight savings time. And I didn't know if YouTube was going to keep track of that. And if the counter on your screen was going to say there was still an hour to go when I pushed the button. And I see IL Peleg has just put in. I was just going to ask if you change time. I was sure I still have an hour till the live stream. Yes, we did change over to daylight savings time. So some of our international folks may be still out in the shop doing things and, you know, um, thinking that they still another hour yet before the live stream starts. So sorry for that confusion. When I set it all up, I had forgotten totally about the time change. So, but anyway, welcome to today, Mark. Yeah, let's yeah, let's take a look back up here. I know there was a couple of questions on this morning's video, which was about material setup and the model placement within the material. Now, that is something that I really don't reinforce enough, is using that gap above the model, or in some cases gap below the model, or what have you. And I really need to start paying more attention to that. I said in the video that that is especially important. The going into material setup is especially important on 3D models, but it is important to double check on every project. Because when I spoke about the rapid gaps above model Z1 and Z2, that is one of those settings that can change with every project. And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned in the video, there are several different ways of mounting material, and you may use several different ways at the same time. If you have, for instance, a fixture that you hold down pieces that you V-carve a lot, you have a specific project that you do and you make a lot of these things. Coasters comes to mind. If you make a lot of coasters, you may come up with a fixture to hold those coasters in place and use a vacuum pod or double-sided tape or tape and CA glue to hold that material down. You don't really have to worry about clearance for clamps or anything like that. You may have to worry about parts of the fixture. So it's just going to depend on the project, and that's going to be different than if you put a finished end for a cabinet down on the CNC and use toe clamps for it to hold it in place. So your Z gap above the model may change depending upon the type of project you're doing. You may only need to have it come up out of the material a millimeter or a 1/16 of an inch and move over to the next cutting area and plunge in. Then again, if you have a lot of things around the edges that you need to clear, like clamps or parts of a fixture, you may need to set that rapid gap up higher. So that is something that may change, and it's worth getting in there and looking at. So it's kind of like feeds and speeds in that no two projects are going to be absolutely identical. So that's my caveat there. So reinforcing the use of that is something I need to work on and do a lot more often. Now, I got a comment on the video this morning, not too long before we went live here, and it kind of worried me just a little bit. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm not going to say who it was, but he said, this cleared up a lot of my confusion, not only about the material setup dialogue, but also my understanding of the zero plane. Okay, the modeling plane that I referenced in talking about the model placement within the material, that is not the zero plane. The zero plane is a completely different animal. That is the modeling plane. Think of the modeling plane as a tabletop that you're going to start assembling the different components and pieces on top of. So you've got that modeling plane, and everything that you add, every component you add to that modeling plane is either added to, subtracted from, or merged with that modeling plane, and built up from there. It doesn't merge with the modeling plane. They merge with one another. So that is not the zero plane. The zero plane has a Z height of 0. So if you are setting your Z0 to the material surface, that's where that zero plane is. It's at the material surface. Now, I've only covered the zero plane as far as the basics are concerned. There's a lot more you can do with the zero plane, but I'm still getting up to speed on that, on some of the things that can be done with the zero plane. And there's some cool stuff, believe me. We'll get into that probably later in the year, though. So, don't confuse that modeling plane with the zero plane. They are two completely different things. So, let's see. Let me go down here, down the list, and somebody asked, I gotta find this. We were talking about the weather and upgrading to spindles. That is something that I want to do later on this year. Okay, Rick French says, I'm thinking that at least the second half of this morning's video of the Safe Z settings should be edited into your beginner series. It might have saved me a bit from a clamp collision. I did mention it in a couple of videos, but as I said, I did a very poor job of reinforcing it. Did a real poor job of being consistent with its use. But I did put it into a couple of the beginners videos. Now, I am going to be adding it to the CNC for Beginners playlist, which is something I should have done. but it's kind of late to add to the Vectric for the Absolute Beginner series. Uh, I, Basically, I had to draw the line on the beginner series somewhere, and when I got to 50 episodes, I thought that's enough because I'm not really doing beginner stuff anymore. This is pretty advanced. But yeah, you're absolutely right. But as Michael Mazalik said down below your comment, everyone needs a good clamp collision every so often. It's kind of like a rite of passage. I mean, I don't use clamps a lot, but yeah, I've run into them. That's why I use wooden clamps or nylon clamps or plastic clamps because it saves from breaking a bit. What can I say? So let's see here. We have, okay, Adam Tuning is joining us for the first time. It says, my machine will be here in 2 days. Been cramming as much info into my brain as I can lately. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because I just like to say welcome aboard, number one, Adam. But I made a comment that this isn't a race. And then I promptly went on to tell you that slow and steady wins the race that doesn't exist. So cross signals aside, just remember that you can't learn everything at once, so don't try. Start with a simple project. I mean, I tell folks that probably the simplest project you can start with is an address sign for your house, whether you ever hang it up or not. That will introduce you to a lot of the processes. That'll introduce you to design creation, vector creation, working with text, depending upon how you go about it and what style you're looking for. It may introduce you to V carving or pocket carving. It will introduce you to profile toolpath and profile cutout. But there's a lot of instant gratification there. And in working with the basics, you will get a lot more experience under your belt than you think you might. There is no replacement for experience. I mean, my grandfather taught me that years ago, and the only way to get that experience is to do it. And you would be surprised if you make a nice looking address sign for your house and mount it, people will ask you where you got it, and which case you say, hey, I made it. And next thing you know, you're making address signs for other people. And in fact, I know one person back in Florida who did exactly that, made an address sign, and within a week he had made address signs for everybody in his cul-de-sac. It happens. So be aware of that. You might be selective in who you show things to, because when folks see what you can do with a CNC router, they will come up with 100 projects they suddenly need yesterday. So your ability to say no to certain projects may become very valuable. Just slow and steady. I started off with free materials that I went onto my local Craigslist and got in the free section, and I found scrap wood that was headed for the landfill. And I grabbed that up and I practiced on it. I carved up a lot of old broken fence boards and old trashed tabletops and what have you. Free material that's destined for the landfill is excellent practice material. So, but slow and steady, learn your software, learn your machine, and you'll do just fine. If I can do this, anybody can do this, believe me. So, let's go down the list here. Sheldon Otto wants to know, are you going to include a CO2 laser into your new shop? That is undecided. I say never say never. I would love to have one. I just don't know if I'm going to have the room. So that's undecided right now. But I would like to have one. I really would. We'll see. Let's see here. Cruising on down the line. Pardon me for all the itching and scratching and what have you. Let me cruise down here and see what's going on. Tales of Matt. Thank you very much for the super sticker. I do appreciate it. I just found it. Yeah, this is cool. I appreciate it very much. Let's see. Bob Heltebridal. Have you done anything with the molding tool in Aspire? I'm going to need that soon, getting closer to the arch molding for the grandfather clock. I assume you're talking about the molding toolpath. I did only one video on it, and that was I did a guitar fretboard because I thought it would be a simple project to introduce that. But I do need to get in and do some more with the molding toolpath. It's basically it basically it would be the same thing. The advantage of using the molding toolpath versus other toolpaths, even in Aspire, is that when you, let's say you draw an arch and you have a profile and you project that profile along that arch, the bit actually follows the arch as it's carving that molding back and forth. Whereas if you use a two-rail sweep, it will raster at whatever angle you put into the toolpath. So using that molding toolpath, it will follow that arch. And so any step over lines and grooves will follow the shape and make it a heck of a lot easier to sand and clean up. So I will get into the molding toolpath and do a few more videos on it because I need to revisit that. Let's see. All right, there we go. I made a note to myself to do that. My next video, however, I'm going to get back into level clipping and get a little bit more advanced on that. I did tease that in my first level clipping video for Aspire, but I'm going to get back into that and we're going to get a little bit more advanced. I've had a couple of questions on it, so that'll be 2 weeks from now. So let's see. Dave Matthews says, there is a reason I use clamps made out of scrap ply. I get too close and just say oops instead of watching an aluminum clamp, an expensive aluminum clamp getting cut in half. Word. That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. Let's see. Chris Leach says, I have V-card chamfered the tips of 2 steel clamps, nearly had a heart attack. It gets exciting real fast, doesn't it? It gets real exciting real quick. Let's see. I have a question on the shop. I'll get into that. Let's see. Bacon Lube, interesting name, wants to know, do I use Fusion 360? No, I don't. I am not an expert with any software, but I am an expert at attempting to learn how to use software. And Fusion 360 gave me horror flashbacks of AutoCAD back in the 90s when I was introduced to the PC and AutoCAD the same week in 1997. And I got into Fusion 360 and went, oh boy, good old Autodesk. Hide everything in submenus within submenus. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. I've installed it and removed it probably 50 times. But then I found Vectric VCarve Pro when I started, and I've never looked back. So I don't use Fusion 360, and I have no plans to start. So that's the short and long answer. So let's see. I am going to go back over real quick to the channel comments I got this morning because there was somebody who asked 2 questions about, let's see, that was Joe of Wood Studio IA, and I'm assuming the IA is Iowa, correct? Please correct me if I'm wrong. And I think I saw you out there. Question 1, is the Z gap in the home start position only used once during a cut? In other words, after a bit change, when you press start, the bit will move over to the XY start point at that height. Yes, that's correct. It basically, that home start position is an area with a gap above the surface of the material that is used, number one, so that your bit will clear the material. It's a known position. And then it will start to plunge down to that Z1 gap that you set in your rapid gaps above the model. And when it gets to that first cutting location, then Z2 will kick in and it'll start plunging in and run the tool path. But that Z level that you put in the home start position, it's only used at the very beginning of the G-code file and at the very end. When it's finished cutting the project, it will lift up out of the material and then go over to the home start position. And that's where it'll sit there and idle until you shut it down and change G-code. It's just a simple known position that's well above the material. Also to kind of help in tool changes. When my cut is finished and it goes back to the home start position, that 0.8 I have set in there, 0.8 inches above the surface, which is roughly, I think, 22 millimeters, 21 millimeters, something like that. That's high enough for me to do the tool change. Now, there are occasions when I'm switching over from a very short 1/8 inch diameter shank bit to a 1/4 inch diameter bit that I'll need to lift it up further. But generally speaking, that 0.8 above the material is high enough for me to do a tool change. And that's why I have it set that high. So I hope that answers that. Question 2, since clearance Z1 is safe Z, then the bit will travel above the material between cuts at this height, correct? Yes, correct. If plunge Z2 is set to the same height as Z1, then the machine plunge rate will never come into play, and only the plunge rate that you set for that particular bit will be used, correct? Yes and no. Because again, when it's moving from that home position, and it starts moving to the first cutting area, it's going to move down to that Z2 at your rapid rate. So in my case, with a rapid of 120 inches per minute, it's going to start moving down from that home position at 120, or as fast as it can, because it may not get up to 120. Then when it gets to that 0.2 above the material, then it slows down to the feed rate. Also, if I do have to lift my bit up higher because I'm going to be inserting a longer bit, that bit may be 3 inches above my material surface. So when I get the tool change done, I set my I set my Z0 for the tool change. It will then use that Z2 plunge rate to get down to 0.2 above the material. Then it will kick into the plunge rate of the bit. So there are various situations where it will use either or. Z2 is mainly used as a preventative measure to keep that bit from plunging all the way down into your material at your rapid rate. It needs to know where to stop moving at a rapid rate and let the plunge rate for the bit take over. And that's what Z2 is used for. So I hope that answers that, Joe. And thank you for the questions. I love questions like that. So, let's see. Chris Leach. Wow, thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Let's see here. You guys are just killer. You guys are great. Let's see. Let me cruise through here and see if we have any more questions. Jack Painter says, just curious Is there a specific reason to start in the lower left than, say, the center? My reason for starting at the lower left is because I use a three-way touch plate. It sets my X, Y, and Z 0 to the material surface. And the touch plate is called a triple edge finder, and it has a boss machined into it at a right angle. And I put that right angle over the corner of my piece of material on the bottom left corner, and that's where I set my X, Y, and Z 0. You can use any position you would like to set your X, Y, and Z 0. The important thing is to remember that position and use it. A lot of people like to use the center of the material, and there are times when I will too. For instance, I did a video on using a keyhole bit. When I use the keyhole bit, I set the X, Y, and Z 0 to the center of the... Okay, let me back up and regroup. I generated G-code for a horizontal keyhole bit and a vertical keyhole bit. Now, I tend to use the vertical keyhole bit a lot more often. I generated that G-code with the XYZ 0 set to the center. And that was on a 2-inch by 2-inch piece of material. Every project is a little bit different, and I will do a video on this later. So what I do is I mount my project down to the bed, then I come down 2 inches, and make a mark, or excuse me, 1 inch, and make a mark. That is the center of the material, as it were, for that keyhole bit. Like I said, I'll do a video on it when I get the shop up and running and I'm outside. So there are occasions where I'll use the center of the material. There are occasions where I'll use the bottom left, because some materials just, you can't, there is no bottom left corner. I mean, if you're using a round piece of material, where's the bottom left corner? It's, I'll just put it in the center and go for it. There are also situations where you might want to start at the top right or the bottom right. You have several choices. It's just when I use my touch plate, I go for the bottom left, and because my touch plate is machined to use a right angle corner. So let's see. Cruising through. Danny Boo, I am a newbie and learning VCarve Pro. How do you do a fillet around an outside cutout? A fillet, are you talking about a round over from the surface down to the depth? Because I have a video on that. Let me know in the chat here if that's what you meant. Because I did do a video, and if that's what you meant, I will link it in the description of this video as soon as we're finished here live. So, let's see. Joe of Wood Studio IA. I see you are here. Working on a sign and plan to cut a pocket toolpath so the letters and numbers are raised, but also want to carve a 3D clip art so that the top is the same height of the letters. How do I place the clip art? The model height in the material, the gap above model, like I showed this morning. Go ahead and calculate the toolpath for your pockets. Find that height, find that depth, then adjust the model, position it to where it is the same height. Now, that's one of the things that I misspoke on, and one of the things that I forgot in this video, a correction I need to make. You may have to adjust model thickness, and you may have to adjust base height as well. But adjusting that placement within the material is just as important as those three. I also said that you should get that gap above the model set before you calculate any other tool paths. And that was just flat out incorrect. That was factually inaccurate. You may have to carve that pocket first. Like the example I gave in the video, I have no way of knowing really where that pocket is going to finish up until the pocket is cut. So it was wrong of me to say do that before you calculate any other tool paths. It's perfectly fine to calculate the other tool paths, then calculate your 3D tool paths, then go back and adjust it to fix it. But that's just, again, that's what I demonstrated this morning, Joe, and that will get you right there in that ballpark. So let's see. Holy cow, Adam, thank you very much for the super chat. You guys are awesome, man. You guys really are awesome. Let's see. It just, you guys blow me away. It's crazy. Thank you for the compliments, guys. This is all kind of weird to me, but thank you very much. IL Peleg says, it does seem that there are tasks that the Vectric software is more suitable for than Fusion 360. Don't get me wrong, Fusion 360 is an excellent program. If you are going to be machining parts for assemblies, by all means, get into Fusion 360. If you're going to be 3D printing, get into Fusion 360. It is an excellent, excellent program. It's just not the right program for what I use it for. I'm not making assemblies. I'm doing more of the artistic type of 3D modeling. I'm not cutting gears for a clock. That would be something for Fusion 360. I did attempt to learn it. I even took a few classes on SolidWorks. I'm not going to compare Fusion 360 with SolidWorks, but they're the same type of parametric drawing that Vectric just is not. So if you're going to be doing machining and more parametric modeling, and you're not focusing on the artistic stuff, then Fusion 360 is for you. It is an excellent program. It's just not the right program for the way I use my CNC. So, IL Peleg wants to know, what brand is your 3-edge finder? The brand is called Triple Edge Finder. It's through the Maker's Guide, run by Bill Griggs, who is well known here in the CNC community. And I bought it when I first was starting out, because for some reason I was paranoid about setting X, Y, and Z. Don't get me wrong, it's a great product. I have absolutely zero regrets of buying it. But it's not, strictly speaking, 100% necessary. It does shine when it comes to, and I did a video on this, I lost power during a cut, right in the middle of a cut. And it is excellent at resetting X, Y, and Z zero after a power loss. And I did a video on that. Let's see. I just wrote a note to myself to put a link to that video down in the description of this video as soon as we're done live. Do know, however, that the only way I know how to set up the Triple Edge Finder is in Mach 3. I'll put a link to the Maker's Guide down in the description of this video. Hashtag not sponsored. It's not an affiliate link. And you can get some information from Bill on how to use it with whatever you're using, and different screen sets and what have you. So, let's see. Bob Frail wants to know, I set my Z2 at 2 inches to allow adequate height to remove my brush attachment for bit changes. Is there any concern other than speed to Z1 in my using such a high Z2? Um, well, okay, I think there may be confusion there. Z2 doesn't set the height that it's going to retract to. Z2 is just the point where during a plunge move, Z2 is just how high above the material the bit is going to plunge in its rapid feed rate and then slow down to the feed rate for that bit. So I think you mean Z1. If you set Z1 to allow adequate height to remove the brush for a bit change, I don't think that would be appropriate either. That would be the home start position, gap above model. Again, Z1 is just where it's going to lift up out of the material to move to another area, then plunge in that area. And Z2 is at what point the bit stops plunging at the rapid rate and slows down to the plunge rate for that bit. What you're talking about, Bob, would be the home position, gap above material. So, let's see. Rick French, do you somehow record your machine position for XY0 so that you can manually get it back to that start point if there's a power failure or other interruption? As I said, I did a video exactly on that, and I'll put a link to it down in the description of this video when we're finished. So, let's see. Only Chevy says, how do you set it 0 on X and Y on a V-bit with a touch plate? Personally, I don't use a V-bit. When I'm setting X and Y 0 with my 3-way touch plate, I put a 1/4-inch end mill in there half tight and set X and Y 0 that way. Then I'll put in the bit I'm getting ready to use, say a 60-degree V-bit, and I'll set Z that way. But that's all there is to that. Let's see. Paul Rothwell wants to know, can you show me how to activate different colors for different tool paths within the same job setup? Are you talking about in the preview window? Because if you're talking about in the preview window, I have shown it before. Let me bring up Aspire and make sure I'm screen sharing, and I'll maximize the 3D view. In the preview window, you select, for instance, we have VCarve 2, which is set for black, and you can tell that because of that little square right there. You'll come up here and you'll put machined area color, you'll select toolpath color, you put the mark here, then come over and you set your color right there. Now I can set that to any color I want. I don't like that, I can come back and change it. Let's say to, where is red? There's red. Okay, I don't like that either. I'm going to go to black because it's easier to see. If you're talking about your toolpaths, this is where you set those colors. Now, if you are, whoops, did I just, no, okay. If you are talking about in your 2D view over here, making these in different colors, the only way to make your vectors that I know of in different colors is to put them on different layers and then change those layers to different colors. For instance, up here in the layer manager of this video, we have one layer with all of the artwork on it. We have another layer that is the dimensions. I think he's, yeah, no, he hasn't entered those in here. And again, this is not my file. So if I wanted to make this text a different color, the vectors a different color than this, I would have to select all of this text and then move it over to a new layer and make the drawing color a different color. Then I could have a different color out here. Now, again, the choice is yours. But if you're talking about the preview for the 3D view, that's over here in the preview toolpath window. So I hope that helps you out there. And I hope that was the question you were trying to ask. Let's see, I'm trying to catch up here in the chat. All right, sorry I'm not savvy. What is a super chat? A super chat is if you look down at the bottom in your chat window, you'll see the $sign. You can click that and send me a tip, basically, is what a super chat is. And it highlights your question, comment, so that I can see it. I mean, it's bold. It jumps right at me. And it puts that chat up at the top of the chat window and everything. It's a way to support the channel and give me a tip. Thank you very much, Rob Sandstrom. You say, thanks for all your efforts. Thank you for watching, my friend. I mean, you guys just blow me away. Let's see. Okay, I see. Well, and Chris Leach, thank you for letting him know. Let's see here. Now I'm trying to get covered here. The Fusion, Dave Matthews says the Fusion 360 user interface changed about 18 months ago. So you will see differences in the videos older than that. The changes mostly changed where things are found. So most of the info still works. Oh boy. Autodesk is known for that. And for those that don't know, Autodesk is the parent company that makes Fusion 360. They also make AutoCAD, and several other 2D and 3D CAD CAM packages. Autodesk Inventor. Anyway, they are known for that. In fact, they went through a little era after, I would say they started in 2000, 2001, where they had a new release every year. So you had Autodesk, you had AutoCAD 2002, AutoCAD 2004, AutoCAD 2005. And the interface on every single new edition was different. They would put things in different menus. They would add things to submenus and take other things out of submenus. And they did that for a few years until finally their users complained so much they stopped doing that every year. But it was really a mess. I mean, a real mess. Because if you upgraded your AutoCAD, you were basically learning it all over again. And while that might not be a bad thing for a home hobbyist, it's a major pain if you've got 60 employees who suddenly don't know how to use the software that they've been using for 10 years. So, but Autodesk is known for doing that. They love to change things around. So, let's see. Joe says, do you use a torque wrench to tighten the bits in the collet? No. I jokingly say I have a calibrated elbow, but I don't see the need. I mean, if you tighten it hand tight and then put the wrenches on it and, go for as close to a quarter turn as you can, you probably won't be able to, depending upon how strong you are. I just, tighten it down. I've never used a torque wrench on a collet at all. So let's see. Podman says, I'm still running VCarve Pro 9.5. Is it really worthwhile upgrading to 10? Bit wary of the cost to upgrade. Many thanks. Yes, it is 100% worth the upgrade. You're missing out on a lot of new tool paths that they have created and added. And I'm going to let me throw something at you here, Podman. The way Vectric works is if you upgrade to a new version and they come up with a new version outside of that version family. So let's say right now you're at version 9.5. If you upgrade right now, you'll be upgrading to version 10.5. If they come out with version 11 within 12 months of you purchasing that upgrade, you'll get the upgrade to version 11 for free. Then, when they come out with the upgrade to version 11.5, because it's within that version family, 11, you will get that upgrade for free. So now is the time. Now is, because version 11, and I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know already. This has already been made public. Version 11 is coming within the next, well, let me put it to you this way. Version 11 will be out before September, and that's well within a year. So if you're going to upgrade to version 10 plus, now's the time to do it. And the reason I know that version 11 is going to be out before September is because if you look on Vectric's website for the user group meeting in San Diego happening in September, a good percentage of the classes they're going to be giving is some of the new features in version 11. So it will be out by then. Otherwise, they wouldn't be giving those classes. So, but now may be the time to update. And yes, it's well worth the money. Believe me, there are a lot of features. There are a lot of new tool paths that just aren't in the older versions. So yes, it's worth it. Peckerhead Carving 78 wants to know, what software do you use to run your CNC? I use Mach 3. I got Mach 3 in 2014 when I started doing this, and I've never looked back. It works. It works for me. So I know there are newer versions of software out there, and there are other options out there, but I went ahead, bought the bullet, and have loved the support. It is a well-known program, and the level of support out there and the level of customization you can do with it, it's, I just use it and it works. So I love it. Let's see. Eric Girth, have you always been in CAD CAM? Your knowledge is very impressive. Well, thank you for that, number one. No, I haven't. 7 years ago, I'd never been in the same building with a CNC router. I've learned this by working with it, watching tutorials, talking with people who have been there and done that, learning from them and applying it to what I want to do, pushing myself to learn and do things I've never done before. So it's been 100% practice. And I don't watch television. If I'm not got my face stuck in a YouTube video, I'm in the software drawing, designing, and learning stuff. And I'll do it just on a whim. I'll pull up Aspire and create a project and start playing with vectors. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break it. I'm trying to break my design and figure out why you do things a certain way and why you don't do things a certain way. Because it's real easy to tell you to put tab A in slot B. But if you know why tab A goes into slot B and what depends on that assembly being the way it is, you're more likely to remember that tab A goes into slot B. So that's kind of the way I gear things, and that's the way I learn. So I'm just constantly trying to push myself, teach myself, and that dovetails into mentioning Michael Mazalik's video this afternoon. In about an hour after I end this live stream, where he's going to present part 2 of his police badge series. There is a link in the description of this video, and it's following people like Michael who have helped me, I mean, I can't quantify it. So that's this afternoon, about an hour after we're finished here. That's 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. on the West Coast. And it's part 2 of his police badge series, how to 3D model a police badge in Aspire. And I'm telling you, it is killer. Michael's a wizard. So there is a link to it in the description of this video, by the way. Let's see. There was another question up here. Romeo Hesh wants to know, do you always chamfer before the profile cutout? I don't always use a chamfer, but when I do use a chamfer, yes, I do the chamfer profile pass before I do the profile cutout. The profile cutout is always, always the last thing I do, because I want to get every other operation done before I cut that part away from the material, whether I'm using tabs or not. Because the tabs may or may not be strong enough to hold that piece down on the machine bed if I've got other machining operations to do. So I always do the profile cutout last. So, Marlon Johnson, wow, thank you very much for the super chat. I really, really, really appreciate it. Wow, you guys are awesome. See what I mean? You guys are amazing, man. Thank you. Let's see. Terry Williams says, when you chamfer before you make your profile cut, how do you offset so there is no ridge on the bottom side of the chamfer? You do the chamfer when you set up the profile toolpath to chamfer the top edge, you machine on the vector. When you do your profile cut, you machine outside the vector. And that will eliminate that little step that you're talking about, that ridge. So do the chamfer on the toolpath, on the vector, and the cutout outside the vector. So, Peckerhead Carving 78 said, so when you lost power, can you go back to the spot it shut down, or do you have to start all over? I had a 13-hour carve, and it happened to me on the 12-hour mark. Yes, and I talked about that in that video. I loaded my G-code again in Mach 3, and I fast-forwarded to, I scrolled through the G-code to a couple of lines before where the power outage happened. And in Mach 3, I can hit run from here. It double checks me and makes sure that it's clear and safe to move the machine to that position. Then it started from right there. So, yes, there is that ability. Let's see. Daylight savings time's messing me up. Yes, okay. I'm going to have to put an end to the questions here because I have something else I want to talk about real quick. Russell Faraday says, question, I'm carving a sign similar to your example on the Q&A. My stock is not very flat on the top surface. When I run the tool pass, the top of the letters and beveled edge are not machined. Is there a way to machine them without surfacing the entire stock beforehand? Yes. Try this on some scrap first, but set a start depth in your VCarve toolpath. Let's say, for the sake of argument, your material has a variation of a 1/16 of an inch. So it's not completely level and flat, and it bumps up about a 1/16 of an inch. If you put a start depth of a 1/16 of an inch there in the VCarve toolpath, it will plunge in that 1/16 of an inch, then start carving your pattern. Having said that, you will have to go back and sand that to get it all nice and level. But yes, put a start depth in that VCarve toolpath when you calculate it, and it will begin the actual cut a little bit shallower, or excuse me, a little bit deeper, if that makes sense. So, let's James Carano, I have a finished tool path that is 48 hours. Is there a way to break that down to smaller tool paths? Not that I am aware of. I did do a video, I will link it, on reducing 3D machining times. And that is 29 Gleason. Thank you very much for the super chat. I really, really, really do appreciate it. You guys are fantastic. A lot of that has to do with the plunge rate of your bit in that 3D toolpath, James. Okay. When you set your feed rate in Aspire to carve a 3D carving, that's all well and good, but your CNC will always move at the speed of your slowest axis. So, for example, if you have your feed rate for your bit set to run at 100 inches per minute, but you have the plunge rate set to run at 25 inches per minute, because the Z is almost constantly in motion during that 3D carve, it's going to run at that slower 25 inches per minute. Now, if you do a 3D roughing toolpath first and remove the bulk of that material, leaving a short skin, I set mine usually for 20 to 30 thousandths of an inch. When I rough, it's going to leave 20 or 30 thousandths of an inch. You're only machining away that little bit of material on your finishing toolpath. So you can run a faster plunge rate. So on 3D carves with my 1/16th of an inch tapered ball nose, I will set my plunge rate equal to my feed rate. So if I'm running, for example, 80 inches per minute feed rate, I will set my plunge rate to 80 inches a minute as well, because the toolpath is going to be run at that speed. And I demonstrate it in this video on reducing 3D machining times, and you'll get a better grasp of what I'm talking about because I demonstrate it. But that will help reducing that machining time. Now, as far as breaking up that toolpath into separate parts so you can run some today, some tomorrow, some the next day, I don't know of a way of automatically doing that. If you get good with G-code, I'm sure there's somebody out there who could tell you how to do that and how to manually write your own G-code for that. But I'm not that person. I don't know how to do that. So, Peckerhead Carvings, guys, $10. Holy cow. Thank you very much for the super chat. You guys are amazing, man. Excuse me. Let's see. This is going to be the last question that I tackle. I appreciate it very much. But we're running out of time, and I got somebody I need to talk about. Harvey Matyas says, I'm serious about getting Aspire, but I was wondering about getting it too early, and when Aspire went to version 11, having to pay more for it. I like the free projects that are made for the current version. Yes. Again, if you purchase an upgrade or purchase the software outright, if they release a new version during that 12 months after your purchase, you will get that upgrade for free. And then upgrades within that family, say version 11 to 11.5, version 10 to 10.5, those upgrades are free to everybody within that version. So, okay, that's going to have to be the last question I take. We've already been on here for an hour. But I wanted to give somebody a shout out. And this is going to be especially helpful to you folks who are A, new, or B, looking to upgrade your machine. There's a gentleman who is a friend of mine on Facebook by the name of Chris Holcomb. And he has a YouTube channel called Custom Creative Carvings. Now, Chris, his YouTube channel's fairly new, but he has started a series called My CNC Beginnings. Now, Chris has been a CNCer for a while, and he started out with a little imported, like a 12 by 12 desktop CNC machine that he learned to work with. Then he upgraded to a larger machine, then an upgraded to a larger machine. He ended up with a Gerber 4x4 machine in his garage, made it work. He bought it at an auction. It was not running. He made it work. Then he decided to bite the bullet and upgraded to a Legacy CNC Maverick 3x5 machine, big commercial machine. James Serrano, thank you very much. Boy, you guys are embarrassing me. Thank you. You guys are the best. I'm telling you, man, I got the best viewers on YouTube. This is so cool. Then, back to Chris, I'm sorry. Well, he just announced a couple of days ago that he is upgrading from the 3x5 Legacy CNC Maverick to the 4x8 Maverick. And what he's doing is he's documenting his progress, starting with that little bitty desktop machine and working his way up into the larger commercial industrial quality machines as he makes that leap. And he discusses some of the things that you need to take into consideration when you make that jump. Should you jump to a big industrial machine from your 1,000 by 1,000 millimeter Shapeoko? Should you avoid some of the middle of the road machines and just dive into the heavier duty machines? Or should you kind of keep a hobby level situation going? And it's a very unique idea for a series. It's very, I think there's a lot of value in there. Because if you are contemplating getting into CNC, I'm sure you've heard before, buy your second machine first. Well, that's very easy for someone else to say, but they're not the one writing the check. So his experiences in starting with the small desktop $200 machine and working his way up to something that costs more than every car I've known all put together. That's a very, very interesting situation to be in and a very interesting journey. So I've put a link to his playlist that he's put together called My CNC Beginnings down in the description of this video. And I put a link to his channel. It's called Custom Creative Carvings. And the gentleman's name is Chris. And subscribe to his channel. He's got some neat, very neat projects going there. He doesn't do tutorials so much, but I'm trying to talk him into doing some of those. He's very good. So, but show him some love. It's a great idea for a series from the guy who's been there, done that, got the T-shirt. You know, I don't know if he's already got it, but I do know his 4x8 Maverick with rotary axis is on its way. So it's worth watching. Believe me, some very interesting topics. It's Chris Holcomb over at Custom Creative Carvings. There's a link to it in the description below. Okay, I want to thank everybody who hit those super stickers down below and everybody who hit that super chat. You guys are amazing. I got the best viewers on YouTube. I really appreciate every one of you. If you are going, I mentioned it earlier, if you are going to the Vectric user group meeting in San Diego this September, I will be there. Hope to see you. And say hello to me. I'll be passing out stickers and what have you. And we'll, get together, have a good old time, go for coffee or do whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I hope to see everybody at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific over on Mike Mazalik's YouTube channel for part 2 of the police badge, which, watch me get a copyright strike now, for the police badge series. Part 2, he's going to finish it up, I think. See you there in the chat. Y'all have a great day. And go do something cool. Get out of the house. After Mike's video, of course. Get out of the house. Make some chips. See you next week. Y'all take care.